Chapter 1. 5 minutes to entry interface. The announcement crackled through the comm system of the Hermes, breaking the nervous silence on the flight deck. Sam Jameson opened her eyes, her heart starting to hammer in her chest. This was really happening. After years of training and preparation, they were about to enter the Martian atmosphere and touch down on the surface of the Red Planet. As pilot of the first ever manned mission to Mars, she could hardly believe this moment had finally arrived. It felt like only yesterday she was an astronomy student dreaming of traversing the stars, and now here she was, about to make history. Sam looked around at her crew, Luca, Akihiro, Maria, and Andre, taking in their tense expressions. She gave them a reassuring smile. "This is it, guys. Years of work and we've made it this far. Let's stick the landing and show Mars what we humans are made of." There were nods and murmured words of agreement. They were a diverse group, coming from different parts of the world, but the rigorous training had bonded them together. Sam felt lucky to be making this journey with them at her side. Altitude 100,000 feet. Prepare for retro burn in 5, 4, 3, 2. Sam gripped the controls, firing the thrusters to slow their descent into the thin Martian atmosphere. The ship rumbled and shook as it was enveloped in a fiery glow. She gritted her teeth, guiding them through the turbulence. 50,000 feet. Deploy parachutes. The jolt subsided as the chutes inflated above them, the red sands of Mars rapidly rising up to meet them. Sam peered out the viewport in wonder at the alien landscape, rugged terrain and wind-weathered rocks beneath a pinkish sky. She could barely believe this was real. The Hermes landed with a gentle bump, the crew letting out a collective sigh of relief. They had made it, touching down in the vast wilderness of Ares Vallis. Humanity was now on Mars. After a flurry of post-landing checks and procedures, the crew doffed their flight suits and readied themselves for the first extravehicular activity on Mars. Sam stepped out the airlock first, bounding down the steps in the weak Martian gravity. She paused at the bottom and turned, taking in a view no human eyes had witnessed before. "I claim this land in the name of Earth," she shouted, planting a flag into the red soil. The rest of the crew cheered through the comms. For the first few days, the astronauts familiarized themselves with their surroundings, taking samples and making observations. The habitat unit was unpacked and pressurized, allowing for limited time outside without full EVA gear. Sam marveled at how it felt to breathe natural air on another planet, to feel true Martian wind against her face. She noticed the others seeming more relaxed as well now that the dangerous landing was behind them. In the evening, when tasks were complete, the team would gather together in the mess hall of the habitat. Meal packs were shared while stories and jokes were exchanged to unwind from the day's work. Maria taught them silly songs from her childhood in Ukraine, her clear soprano voice ringing through the metal hull. Luca pulled out a harmonica he had smuggled aboard, playing lively melodies until the rest were dancing and laughing hysterically in the low gravity. Sam was amazed that on a cold, dangerous planet millions of miles from home, she could feel such warmth and camaraderie. It gave her hope about the mission, that their human bond could overcome any obstacle Mars threw their way. The next phase was to deploy the rovers and begin exploration of the surrounding region. Sam's favorite part of training was driving the rovers, and she eagerly awaited her first chance to take one out onto the alien landscape. When the day came, she hugged her crewmates goodbye before climbing into the driver's seat of Rover 1. Alone in the small cabin, she breached the airlock and rolled down the ramp onto the rocky Martian plain. "Rover 1 departing Habitat 1. Let the fun begin," she called out. At first, Sam carefully navigated the uneven terrain, not wanting to damage the expensive equipment. But as she drove further and became more comfortable, she couldn't help kicking the rover into high gear, weaving and skidding wildly over the rocks and sand. She felt pure exhilaration being alone out here. No sound but the whisper of the wind and the roar of the engine echoing off the vast mountains in the distance. She closed her eyes and flung her arms out, pretending she was soaring above it all. "Watch yourself, Speed Racer." Andre's voice crackled over the radio. "You break the rover on the first try. I tell Luca and Maria it's their turn next." Sam laughed and eased her pace. She sometimes forgot the others could see the video feed from her cabin. No sense causing undue worry. The plan for today was to scout east, skirting around the base of a massive volcano, looking for any signs of water or ice. As exciting as the barren wilderness was, they hoped to find resources to aid longer stays on Mars. Sam crested a ridge, gasping in awe as Olympus Mons loomed before her. She had studied the images and maps, but nothing prepared her for the staggering scale of the largest volcano in the solar system. It seemed to dominate the entire landscape, stretching up and up until its peak disappeared into the hazy sky. She drove along for hours, winded by the mind-boggling vistas. Sam wanted to explore it all. Each day she went out, she ventured a little further, a little faster, a little more daring. There was so much to see. 2 weeks into surface operations, Andre proposed, checking out an anomalous formation he spotted in orbital images. It was along Sam's intended path for the day, so she readily agreed to take a look. The coordinates led her to an area strewn with boulders that appeared to have tumbled down from the cliffs above. She picked her way through carefully, scanning for what Andre described. "I see it," she radioed back. About 100 meters ahead, the rocks gave way to a clearing, and sitting there was a small structure unlike anything she'd seen yet on Mars. It looked almost like a building, with walls and what resembled a collapsed roof, but it appeared to be carved out of the same weathered stone as the surrounding terrain. Strange symbols were engraved along the outside, almost like writing. "What do you think it is?" she asked. "I have no idea," Andre replied, "but we definitely need to check it out. Proceed carefully." Sam eased the rover forward across the open ground. As she drew closer, she felt a strange, tingling sensation, like static electricity prickling her skin. The science alert indicator blinked in the corner of her display. "I'm getting some kind of energy readout from the structure," she reported. "It's small, but I've never seen this signal pattern before." "Keep your distance for now," Andre instructed. "We'll come out tomorrow with equipment to analyze it. Don't take any risks." Sam hesitated. Every fiber of her being wanted to go straight up and touch the carved walls, figure out what this thing was. But she knew Andre was right to exercise caution. This was the thrill of exploration, resisting dangerous impulses in pursuit of knowledge. Reluctantly, she put the rover in reverse and backed away. This tantalizing discovery warranted more investigation, but they would have to be patient. After waiting so long to set foot on Mars, what was one more day? Yet as Sam pulled away, she could not shake the sense that the structure was watching her go. Chapter 2. The next day, Sam could barely contain her excitement as the crew made preparations to investigate the mysterious structure. She triple-checked the equipment while glancing impatiently at the others suiting up. "Let's get moving, people," she said. "Answers await us." Andre placed a hand on her shoulder. "Patience, Sam. We don't know what we are dealing with. It is wise to be cautious." Sam nodded, trying to mask her frustration. She knew Andre was right, but the thrill of discovery made it difficult to hold back. What wonders or dangers did this alien ruin contain? After what felt like an eternity of safety briefings and protocol, the crew finally stepped out the airlock and onto the Martian surface. Sam bounded ahead towards the waiting rovers, the structure's coordinates already programmed into the navigation system. It wasn't long before the massive volcano and surrounding plains gave way to the boulder-strewn area Sam had scouted the day before. She spotted the clearing up ahead. the ancient structure still half buried in the rusty soil. "There it is," Sam said, her pulse quickening. This close, she could make out more of the intricate symbols carved into the rock walls. They seemed to follow a pattern, though it was unlike any language she'd ever seen. What secrets did they hold? The crew unpacked scanning equipment, devices humming softly as they analyzed the readings coming from the structure. Sam tried to interpret the stream of data on her tablet. "Still picking up that energy signature," she murmured. "It's weak, but steady, and the patterns are too symmetrical to be natural." "It's possible the building is harnessing geothermal energy," said Luca, surveying the slopes of Olympus Mons in the distance. "Perhaps as a power source." Sam shook her head. "I don't think so. The voltage is too low for that. This is something different." Andre frowned as ominous rumbles echoed overhead. "We better wrap this up quickly. That storm is rolling in faster than we anticipated." Sam looked to the south where bruise-colored clouds were building along the horizon. She knew they couldn't get caught out here if it strengthened to a dust storm, but she couldn't shake the feeling they were on the verge of a revelation. Reluctantly, she put her tools away and joined the others suiting up to head back. But suddenly a crack of thunder boomed, much closer than expected. Sam felt the ground tremble beneath her boots. To their horror, a section of the already damaged roof buckled further. Maria cried out as debris rained down meters from where she stood. "Everybody back to the rovers now," barked Andre. The team scrambled away as more of the structure collapsed inward with an ominous groan. A cloud of reddish dust billowed out, engulfing the area. Sam shielded her helmet visor and searched frantically for the others through the haze. Just when she located the bulk of Luca's suit ahead, another violent tremor rent the ground beneath them. She was thrown off her feet as the surface bucked and rolled. The quaking seemed to go on endlessly, though likely only lasted under a minute. After the dust settled, an eerie calm returned to the alien landscape. Sam gingerly got to her feet, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Sound off. Is everyone okay?" There was a round of coughing and affirmations as the crew checked in over the comms. Maria's voice wavered as she replied, "I think my arm might be broken, but I'm okay." Sam let out a breath of relief. They were alive and largely unharmed. But as the haze cleared, her heart sank at the sight of the rubble where the structure had been. It was almost entirely collapsed now, buried under layers of rock and dirt. "No, no, no!" Sam rushed over and frantically started pulling away debris. All those tantalizing clues gone in an instant. It couldn't end like this. She felt Andre's firm grip on her shoulder. "Sam, we have to leave before the storm arrives." His tone left no room for argument. Sam took one last look at the ruins, despair washing over her. What answers lay buried here now, forever out of reach? With a mournful sigh, she turned and followed her crewmates to the rovers. Back at the habitat, the mood was gloomy as the dust storm raged outside. Sam stared sullenly out the window, replaying the collapse in her mind. So much lost potential. Maria's injury was thankfully not serious, but she was ordered by Andre to rest and recover. Sam brought her dinner to try and lift her spirits. "I know how disappointed you must feel," said Maria sympathetically. "But do not lose hope. The answers are still out there, waiting." Sam sighed. "I just had a feeling we were on the verge of something huge. It kills me that the opportunity was snatched away like that." "My babushka used to say, 'Adversity is the dust that polishes the mirror of the soul,'" Maria replied with a smile. "This is only the beginning of our story here. The best is yet to come." The storm raged for days, confining the crew inside. But finally it weakened, and Sam jumped at the chance to survey the damage. She had to know if anything survived. To her astonishment, sections of the structure were now exposed that had been completely buried before. In the collapse, Even more of the elaborate carvings and symbols had become visible. It was as if the building wanted to share its secrets. Andre's brow furrowed as he traced his hand over the hieroglyphic markings. These are definitely not random. There is intent and precision here. Could it be some kind of writing? Asked Luca. Sam's mind raced. There must be a pattern, a code, that would make them intelligible. Let's document everything before we lose it again, Andre ordered. They worked quickly under the watchful peak of Olympus Mons to log each symbol and section of exposed wall. Sam felt electricity coursing through her with every new find. What did it all mean? On the northern side, Luca called out with excitement. "Over here! I think I found something." The others hurried over. Much of the wall had crumbled away, revealing a small chamber inside the structure. Strange objects sat covered in dust around the edges. In the center was a small plinth, and mounted atop it was a smooth, glassy stone. Sam drifted forward as if in a trance. This had to be significant. She reached out a tentative hand, but Luca pulled her back. "We don't know if it's safe. Could be radioactive." Sam nodded reluctantly. "You're right. We'll have to find a way to analyze it back at base." With great care, Luca extracted the glassy stone from the plinth, gently placing it into a padded container. The crew hastily made their way back to the rovers. Dark clouds were building again on the horizon, and soon the ruins would be reburied by the sands. Safely back at the habitat, the team gathered anxiously around while Luca slowly unpacked the artifact from its container. Sam held her breath as he carefully wiped away the dust. Etched onto one side of the glassy black surface were more alien symbols and diagrams. On the opposite side was one clear, recognizable word: danger. Sam's eyes went wide. "It's a warning," she breathed. Akihiro nodded gravely. But a warning against what? Maria stepped forward, tracing her fingers delicately over the symbols on the warning stone. Sam could almost see the gears turning in her head. "Pass me the images we documented," Maria muttered. She pored over them for hours, scribbling notes and cross-referencing symbols. The others waited in tense silence. Finally, she looked up, her face pale. "I think I have deciphered some of it." Her voice was grim. "Well, what does it say?" Sam asked impatiently. Maria took a shaky breath. "It speaks of something called the Abhorrence, an ancient evil, buried deep within Mars." The room went deathly still, the only sound Sam's thudding heart. She met her crewmates' frightened eyes. What had they uncovered? Chapter 3. A tense silence hung over the habitat module as the crew tried to process Maria's chilling translation. Sam's mind reeled. She had expected answers when they arrived on Mars, but nothing like this. An ancient evil ... It has to be some kind of metaphor, right? She muttered, desperate for them all to laugh it off. Actual monsters don't just hang out inside planets. But Maria slowly turned the warning stone over to reveal the etched symbols again, her face grim. "I do not think this is a metaphor," she said quietly. "The creators of this message wanted us to understand a very real danger." Sam shook her head adamantly. "That's impossible. We would have detected something, either from orbit or in our readings. There can't actually be—" She trailed off as the ground trembled beneath her feet. A distant rumble echoed outside the habitat walls. "Not again!" cried Luca. The crew turned fearfully to the viewport, dreading what they might see approaching. But it wasn't a dust storm. Past the rovers, a black cloud was spewing forth from the ruins, swirling and twisting in ways no natural formation could. Sam's blood turned to ice in her veins. This could not be happening. "Everyone get to the lower level now," barked Andre, snapping into crisis mode. Heart pounding, Sam rushed downstairs with the rest. What was out there? What had they awakened? Andre swiftly handed out emergency packs while Luca sealed off the upper airlock. Sam slipped on her helmet and tried to control her frantic breathing. "Conserve oxygen until the storm passes," instructed Andre. "Stay calm and we'll get through this." Sam tried her best to still her nerves as the team hunkered down in the small shielded compartment. It was meant to withstand storms and meteor impacts, but she found little comfort in that fact now. No training could have prepared them for this. For hours they sat in the dim chamber listening to the shrieking maelstrom outside. The habitat creaked and groaned under the strain. Sam could hear her pulse thundering in her ears. "Hey," said Luca gently. "We're going to be okay. This structure wasn't built yesterday." Sam looked up at her crewmate's comforting smile. She knew he was terrified too, but was trying to keep spirits up. She managed a small, grateful nod. They would need each other to survive this. But the ordeal stretched on interminably. Sam could feel the air getting stale and heavy. She tried not to focus on her suit's gradually dropping O2 meter. "Stay calm," she told herself. Sitting across from her, Akihiro stared at the floor mutely. He hadn't said a word since they took shelter. Sam thought he looked pale. "Aki, you hanging in there?" she asked. He lifted his gaze slowly to meet hers, and Sam recoiled at the cold vacancy in his eyes. Her skin prickled. "We never should have come here," Akihiro said in an eerie monotone. "We should have stayed away." Suddenly he ripped his helmet off and got to his feet. Andre shouted and grabbed at him, but Akihiro shoved him back with impossible strength. His eyes were wild and frenzied. "This place is cursed," he cried, moving towards the airlock door. "We have to get out before it takes us too." Andre and Luca managed to wrestle Akihiro to the ground while Sam and Maria hurried to seal his helmet back on. They stared in horror as their crewmate continued to struggle and shout wildly. "It's the lack of air. It's making him delirious," stammered Andre, though he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Akihiro's behavior was unlike anything Sam had ever seen. Eventually, he went limp in their grip, sinking back against the floor. His cryptic warning still rang in Sam's ears. What had happened to his mind? Over the next hour, one by one, each of them experienced the same mental break. Even stoic Andre ended up huddled in a corner, raving about unseen entities. Sam's own thoughts grew cloudier by the minute. She blinked slowly at the dark walls, her oxygen meter dipping into the red. Each breath was a struggle. A whisper seemed to echo from the corner of the shelter. "You shouldn't have come here." Sam's head jerked up, and she strained to see through the gloom. That sounded like Akihiro's voice, but he was slumped unconscious by the far wall. "We warned you to stay away." This time Luca's accent. Sam's pulse spiked. What was happening? She turned towards Maria, but her crewmate was staring blankly at the floor. No one else seemed to hear the whispers. Sam's vision began to blur as more disembodied voices swirled around her. She dug her fingers into her scalp. This couldn't be real. It had to be the oxygen deprivation. "Get out!" rasped Andre's weak voice. Sam gasped and looked over at him. But the commander's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. How could she be hearing him so clearly? "Leave, while you still can," came Maria's voice, barely more than a sigh. Sam squeezed her eyes shut, willing it to stop. She couldn't tell what was real anymore. Were the voices a warning, or a trick to lure them to their doom? As darkness crept into the edges of her mind, Sam knew she was out of time to decide. Each shallow breath brought her closer to oblivion. The voices kept whispering, but she could no longer understand their words. With the last of her strength, she dragged herself across the floor toward the airlock door. Her gloved hand swiped weakly at the touchpad, and the inner door slid open. Icy air rushed in as Sam collapsed forward into the chamber. She clawed towards the outer door controls. Just as her fingers grazed the buttons, her limbs went slack, the last bubbles of oxygen escaping her suit. As Sam's vision faded to black, she could swear she saw ghostly figures standing over her, welcoming her into their cursed realm. She surrendered her grip on consciousness, praying the team could one day escape this nightmare. Chapter 4. Sam drifted in and out of consciousness, caught between dreams and reality. Strange visions swirled through her mind, pyramidal structures rising from wispy sands, tentacled creatures skittering by in the darkness, ghostly beings wandering the dunes under swirling red skies. Gradually the visions faded, and Sam became aware of cold, hard ground beneath her. She tentatively cracked open her eyes, squinting against the light. Her head was throbbing. She found herself lying on her back at an odd angle, legs still partially inside a small chamber. With a groan, Sam pulled herself upright and fully out of the airlock. Her helmet was gone. That should be impossible, she thought in confusion. Then her eyes widened as she recognized her surroundings, the lower airlock of the habitat module. She was somehow back inside, alive. "Hello?" Sam's voice cracked from disuse. How long had she been unconscious? Where was everyone else? Half expecting to hear whispers, she held her breath and listened, but only deathly silence answered her. Sam's heart started to pound. Gingerly she stood up, legs wavering beneath her. Leaning against the compartment wall, she steadied herself and made her way upstairs. The module interior was dim, running on minimal auxiliary power. All systems showed inactive. Sam moved through each room, panic rising as she found them all empty. No trace of her crewmates or any struggle. It was as if they had simply vanished. She activated the exterior cameras, dreading what she might see outside. But no raging dust storm darkened the landscape, just the familiar, rugged terrain beneath a rusty sky. Sam sank down into a chair, utterly bewildered. She stared at her hands, noticing for the first time the strange metal bracelet circling her wrist. Touching it sent a faint tingling up her arm. Where did it come from? With unsteady legs, she made her way outside, desperate for answers. The rover she had driven before the storm was still parked nearby, seemingly undamaged. Sam circled the habitat but found no tracks or footprints in the red dirt. No hint of whatever had happened to the others. It was like she had simply awakened alone on an abandoned planet. In the distance, the ruins sat partially reburied by the sands. She stared, remembering the buried chamber and ominous warning. Had that really happened? Hesitantly, Sam boarded the rover once more. She had to return. It was the only way to make sense of this nightmare. The coordinates came back to her like muscle memory as she piloted towards the site. When Sam arrived, she was stunned to see sections of the ruins fully exposed that had been buried on their previous visits. It was almost like the site was reconfiguring itself, changing. She cautiously suited up and grabbed a portable analyzer before exiting the rover. The structures seemed intact and stable, though there was no logic to why they had emerged. Weaving between the pillars and statuary, Sam followed the familiar path towards the mural chamber they had discovered. To her shock, the opening was now completely clear. Sam peering inside, holding up her analyzer. She expected to detect residual energy or some radiation signature, but the readings came back steady. Whatever force had emanated from here before seemed dormant. She toggled on her suit lights and stepped forward into the chamber. It was just as they left it. The warning plinth standing empty in the center, bizarre artifacts lining the walls. Sam drifted towards the nearest object, a curved metallic rod. As she reached out a hand, lights flickered on along its surface in patterns, seemingly triggered by her presence. Sam jumped back in alarm. Regaining composure, she leaned in again cautiously. Sure enough, the rod synced pulsating lights to her movements. Sam turned away and the device went dark once more. She shook her head in disbelief. After all this time, power still flowed here. But how? Moving carefully around the room, Sam tested each alien device. Inexplicably, they all seemed to react and come alive in her presence, as if attuned to her mind or her bracelet. The last object was a smooth, glassy plate atop a short column. Light swirled from its center point as Sam drew near. She paused, considering. Then slowly, deliberately, she raised her left arm with the bracelet. The lights tracked her movement, converging on the bracelet. They seemed to scan its surface before flashing rapidly. Suddenly, figures and symbols lit up across the plate, moving too fast for Sam to follow. She staggered back, clutching her wrist. What did the bracelet activate? Was it some kind of key? Sam's heart pounded as she looked around the room with new eyes. Alien technology that responded to her presence, and a bracelet that unlocked further secrets here. There were answers to be found in this place. She just had to brave the horrors it held and endure its madness alone. Over the next week, Sam explored the ruins obsessively, pushing past her fears. The devices came to life around her as she documented everything she could. She was unraveling a mystery buried for eons. Through trial and error, she learned to operate the glyph tablet, as she called the glassy plate. Its symbols were similar to the mural writing and seemed to access logs and archives beyond her understanding. But if she could decode them, it might explain what had happened here. Sam worked late each night back at the habitat, poring over images from the tablet. She focused especially on one reoccurring set of glyphs, which depicted bipedal figures collapsing into darkness. Death, or transformation. One evening, as she sat staring blankly at the screen, Sam felt an itch on the back of her neck, like eyes watching her. She wheeled around in alarm but found nothing. Nerves frayed, she dragged her desk around to face the door before resuming work. The next night, that creeping sensation returned, even stronger. Sam whirled around, convinced she would find someone there, but only empty darkness greeted her. She rose cautiously, searching the room. "Luca? Maria?" she called out, feeling foolish. There was no one here. As she turned back, a glowing figure suddenly flashed across her monitor before vanishing. Sam cried out, stumbling away from the desk. What the hell was happening now? She stood frozen for endless minutes, waiting for the phantom to reappear. But the room remained still. Sam wondered if isolation was unraveling her mind. Crawling back to the computer, she scanned through footage from the security feed. And there it was, a ghostly humanoid form on screen for a split second before disappearing. Sam's pulse roared in her ears. She wasn't hallucinating. She stayed up the whole night watching the monitors, but the phantom never returned. However, it was manifesting. It seemed shy of being observed. But its brief presence confirmed one thing to Sam. She was not alone here. The next morning, Sam sat inside the rover, intending to return to the ruins, but felt an overwhelming urge to go south instead. Some instinct pulled her towards Olympus Mons, towering in the distance. Sam spent hours driving across the barren plains, not fully in control. The bracelet seemed to pulse subtly on her wrist, guiding her course. She gave up questioning the compulsion and surrendered to it. Eventually, autopilot switched off as the rover rounded a lava ridge. Sam stepped out, pulse quickening. There, carved into the ancient rock, was another structure nearly identical to the ruins. This is what she was meant to find. Circling the domed building, Sam's eyes were drawn to one section covered in elaborate large glyphs. She recognized some sequences from the tablet archives. This must be significant. Running her hands over the symbols, she willed them to give up their meaning, but the carvings remained silent, guarding their secrets. In frustration, Sam slammed a fist against the section, demanding answers. As she made contact, fracture lines suddenly spread out from her bracelet like spider webs. Cracks split across the panel, casing crumbling away until only darkness lay within. Sam leapt back as debris rained down, her heart hammering. But the walls remained intact. She dared to peer inside the gap created. A hidden chamber lay exposed, just tall enough to crouch within. Pulse racing, Sam stepped over scattered rock shards and entered the dark space. Faint light filtered in from her suit lamps, reflecting off crystalline clusters covering the walls. Their formations reminded her of server arrays. Reaching out a hand, Sam's bracelet lit up in proximity to one cluster. Then, to her shock, a voice spoke from the crystals. "Do not be afraid. You wished to communicate, and now you have found the way." Sam staggered against the wall, speechless. The voice was clear, though seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. "What are you?" she finally managed. "An echo, a memory, all that remains of my people." There was sadness in its time-worn voice. "What happened here?" Sam whispered. Images flashed through her mind at the question. Structures collapsing, strange creatures swarming, tentacled monsters bursting forth from the deep caverns to black out the skies. Sam reeled from the vivid scenes, heart pounding. "The abhorrence," she breathed. "Yes, an ancient evil we unearthed, which consumed everything. Our city, our planet, our people, wiped away in days." Sam's mind raced, struggling to comprehend. "But why show me this? Why me?" "You bear the mark," the presence intoned. "You woke the tablets. The ruins called you back to uncover the truth." Sam looked down at the bracelet locked on her wrist, understanding now it had chosen her, but dread crept in as she realized the implications. "That evil, the abhorrence," she ventured nervously. "It's still contained down there, right?" Ominous silence hung for a long moment before the presence answered. "For now." Chapter 5. A chill ran through Sam at the ominous words. Contained for now could only mean one thing. The ancient evil that destroyed Mars was still down there, waiting to be unleashed again. She swayed on her feet, mind reeling. This changed everything they thought they knew about Mars's history. She had to warn Earth, but would they even believe something so far-fetched? "Please," Sam implored the presence. "Help me understand what this abhorrence is. We detected no signs of life anywhere on Mars before coming here." Images flooded her mind again in response. Bizarre creatures swarming caves deep below the surface, raging dust storms whipping across the plains, deformed beings stalking through abandoned cities. Sam cried out, clutching her head until the vivid vision ceased. She gasped for breath, heart pounding in her ears. "Traces remain buried far down beyond your machine's reach," the presence explained. "But the abhorrence can never be truly destroyed, only contained." Sam's thoughts raced wildly. "And you, your people, the Martians, you discovered this evil? You uncovered it?" "In our arrogance, yes. We delved too deep and unleashed the ancient scourge." Sam could hear the mournful regret. "It consumed everything. Mars will never recover." Sam turned back to the crystals, a realization dawning. "Is that why you brought me here? Why you showed me those visions?" Dread crept into her voice. "Are you saying Earth could face the same fate?" The presence was silent for a long moment before answering. "Your kind is following the same path that led to our doom, digging recklessly, heedless of what lurks below. The abhorrence knows no limits when awakened." Cold fear washed over Sam. Images flashed in her mind of cities on Earth crumbling, monstrous creatures spreading inexorably across the landscape, humanity collapsing into dust. "No!" Sam shouted, desperate. How can our fates be linked across so many light years? There must be something. Your cosmic march carries the same seeds of ruin, the presence interrupted. But our warnings went ignored. Time yet remains to change course. Sam's thoughts raced wildly. As fantastic as it seemed, she knew with absolute conviction the being spoke truth. Its ancient race had suffered this apocalypse, and Earth was unwittingly heading towards the same end. But there had to be another way. Something beyond fear and destruction. Their two peoples were connected across time and space. Maybe there was still a chance, however slim, to alter the trajectory. Sam took a long, slow breath before speaking. I know you feel you failed your people, that you carry the burden of their loss. Her voice echoed softly off the crystalline walls. But I also know you called me here because you see hope, just as I do. This doesn't have to be our end. Help me understand how we change things. We have to try. The presence was silent. Sam held her breath, waiting. Moments stretched on endlessly before it finally answered. Our ways are anchored in the past. Yours may yet adapt to meet what is to come. Its voice sounded warmer somehow. Go. Take our warning back to your people. Guide them towards life. Sam released a shaky breath. Perhaps she had gotten through after all. Thank you, she whispered. As she turned to go, the presence spoke once more. The rising sun, though hemmed by darkness, still illuminates the path. Sam repeated the words in her mind, engraving them on her heart. With a last look around the crystalline chamber, she stepped back out into the fading light. Night had fallen by the time Sam boarded the rover and headed away from the mountain ruins. Exhaustion tugged at her, but she didn't dare rest yet. She had a mission now, to make it back and transmit a warning while there was still time. As the rover peaked a ridge, Sam gasped and slammed the brakes. There in the valley below, illuminated in the stark moonlight, lay utter devastation. The habitat module was torn open and scattered across the sands, pieces still burning with white-hot flames. One of the other rovers was overturned and half buried nearby. No sign of her crewmates anywhere. Sam stared open-mouthed, unable to process the scene. What could have done this? The answer sent a chill down her spine. Something escaped the ruins. She was in danger here. Sam threw the rover in reverse, heart pounding. She had to get off the surface before that unseen evil found her too. It was likely already hunting her, toying with its prey. Sam tried to hold off the rising panic. Peering up desperately through the viewport, she spotted the communications satellite orbiting high above. If she could boost the signal somehow, get a message through. Sam tore open a floor panel, yanking out cables and wiring. If she could wire the battery direct to the radio antenna, the surge might just get picked up. It was her only chance now. Hands shaking, she crossed and attached the live cables. The radio sputtered and whined as she tapped out an SOS, praying it was transmitting. Please let someone hear me, she thought. For agonizing minutes, Sam repeated the distress call, but only static answered. In despair, she switched frequencies to listen in, just wanting to hear a human voice again, however faint. Miraculously, through waves of crackling interference, she started picking up traffic on the International Space Station channel. Sam cried out in relief. She wasn't alone up here after all. She keyed the radio, shouting over the din. This is Samantha Jameson on Mars, transmitting in the blind. My crew is gone. The base destroyed. Warning. Static swallowed her words. Frantically, Sam tapped the makeshift controls, trying to boost the signal again. Samantha Jameson, this is ISS. We read you. A voice cut through. We have a vague fix on your location. A rescue ship is 2 days out. Can you get to higher ground? Sam laughed aloud, new energy surging through her. I'll find a way. Don't worry. Oh, thank God. I can't believe you found me. She could imagine the confusion on the other end. Officially, No crewed missions to Mars were scheduled yet. She had quite the story to tell. Sam coaxed the battered rover up steep scarps towards higher peaks. Snow lay crusted atop the cliffs, but she smiled at its beauty now. She just had to hold out a little longer. Her joy was short-lived, though, as the rover engines abruptly died. She tried cycling the ignition to no avail. Through the viewport, Sam noticed a spindly, servo-like object lodged under the hull. An icy realization ran through her. The enemy had found her first. Heart-pounding, Sam suited up and climbed outside, tugging desperately at the disabled mechanism, but it wouldn't budge, fused to the rover plating. She had no choice now but to continue on foot. Sam stuffed an emergency pack with rations and the radio, then began the treacherous hike upwards. She refused to surrender after coming so far. The Martian night enveloped her as Sam trudged through the frozen slopes. She kept the ISS frequency playing through her suit comm to stay anchored. Their voices comforted her whenever fear crept in. But soon interference drowned them out again. Sam paused, catching her breath and letting the garbled static wash over her. Then between waves, a familiar crackling voice seemed to come through. "Sam, hear me? Ahead lies. Darkness cannot follow the light." Sam froze. "Maria!" she cried out. But only silence answered her now. She peered into the swirling snow, heart pounding. She was so tired and alone. It would be easy to give up, let the ice claim her. Sam swayed on her feet, but she forced herself to focus on the last words she thought she heard Maria say, "Follow the light." Sam shook off despair and kept pushing upwards. She had to see this through. Near the peak, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm her, Sam spotted a crevice glowing with light from inside. New energy surged through her as she squeezed into the narrow space. The source was a pool emitting a shimmering teal bioluminescence. Steam rose off its warm surface, melting the ice walls around it. Sam laughed in delirious relief, a sound she hadn't made in weeks. She scooped some of the liquid into a vial before collapsing beside the pool and slipping gratefully out of consciousness. She had made it through the darkness. Dawn was coming. A faint vibration stirring the ground pulled Sam back from oblivion. She sat bolt upright, disoriented for a moment. Then memory rushed back in. The rescue ship. It had to be here. Sam scrambled recklessly towards the crevice opening, heart pounding. She emerged into blinding daylight, white snow and red earth blending in a riotous glow. Shielding her eyes, she turned to the sound of engines reverberating off the rocks. Then Sam saw it, a glinting star rising over the peaks, coming in fast. She was saved. Sam leapt and waved her arms madly as the shuttle swung low over her head. She followed its path as it circled back around and touched down gracefully, landing struts crunching into the snow. She had made it. Laughing and crying simultaneously, Sam stumbled towards the shuttle as the doors opened. She was caught up in a sudden embrace. "Sam, you have no idea how good it is to see you," Lucas said, eyes bright with emotion as he hugged her tight. Sam could barely speak between overwhelmed sobs. The crew was alive. She hadn't been left alone here after all. Once safely aboard, Sam sunk exhausted into a seat as the shuttle blasted skyward. She gazed out the window, drinking in the sight of Mars receding below. Luca recounted how the rover had been thrown from the storm, stranding them from Sam. They had feared her dead all this time until picking up her signal on evacuation day. "What matters is we are together now," said Andre, smiling warmly at her from across the cabin. Sam smiled back, feeling the truth of his words. Against all odds, they had found each other again. She had so much to tell them. As the shuttle docked with the waiting Hermes, Sam clutched the vial of glowing liquid in her pocket, remembering her mission still ahead. She would share the full, extraordinary story with her crew, and together They would make sure Earth finally understood the Martians' message. Their planet may be just one small world, but it held infinite hope. The dream of Mars had guided humanity forward for generations, and now together they would chart a new course, one of light instead of darkness. Their story was only beginning,